Hey guys, Anthony, 4x4 Diesel. It's been brought to my attention that it's probably important that we do a bit of information for a correction, particularly for anybody that does or might read unsealed 4x4 magazine, right? And I'm not recommending it, I'm just saying if you do, as far as I know, I'm not 100% with all this, but as far as I know, that's Pat Callinan's magazine, Unsealed 4x4. I'm not sure exactly who writes for it, but I think there's a bloke by the name of Glenn writes for it, and it looks like something that's been written by him. And the topic is D4D Hilux common problems and solutions. And somebody shared it to one of our Facebook groups recently, and I had a quick read to see how this will be interesting. You know what I mean? I wasn't sure if he was sharing it because it's good information, or sharing it because it's bad information, or sharing it just to share it. It's all good, but I had a quick read through it, and it's so factually incorrect. The information is so far off, it's not funny. So what we're going to do a series of videos, because I'm probably going to go on and it's going to take too long. So we're going to try and do paragraph by paragraph. So starting here, I'm going to read it to you, and then I'll correct it as we go, I think, because it's just so wrong. So it says D4D Hilux common problems and solutions. The old D4D Hilux certainly isn't unbreakable. Here's what can go wrong and how to fix it. So this will be interesting. Okay, I'll read you this paragraph. The 1KD FTV motor hit our shores in 2005 to an extremely warm reception. Finally, we had a Hilux with a decent amount of performance thanks to the, in brackets for the time, high-tech 3-litre turbo diesel motor and independent suspension featuring a coilover strut in the front end that rode well for a work ute. It was not without its issues, as we soon found out, with clutches burning out prematurely, injectors causing issues, and cases of holes being melted through pistons. Not great. However, a fair few years have passed and there are fixes available for these problems that are more affordable than they have ever been. I should know. I own one of them with 280,000 kilometers on the clock. Sadly though, it's on its second motor after a piston decided it didn't want to work anymore. I've done the research for you because I've got 99 problems, but another blown D4D ain't one. So Glenn, I'd love to know if this was you that wrote this. I believe you've got an old 120 Prado that's heavily modified, heavily loaded, and I wouldn't be surprised if it did have a chip or something along those lines. And if it failed at 280 Ks, well, from what I've seen in the photos, I'm not surprised. So to confirm, I'm not sure about that, guys. A bit of an assumption there, but look, just going through that, most of it's fairly accurate, other than issues with clutches. You know, generally the clutches last, you know, who would know? I mean, this is what we specialize in. The clutches generally last, I'm going to say, circa 230,000 Ks, because that is the most common kilometre reading when a clutch, original OEM, fitted from factory clutch, needs to be replaced from factory. Now, of course, different conditions. If you do a lot of towing and you're reversing up a steep driveway and burning the hell out of the clutch, riding the clutch, if you drive riding the clutch, if you rest your foot on the clutch pedal, these sorts of things that you shouldn't do, which you may not know, is what causes clutch problems. There's certainly nothing wrong with the vehicle or the clutch. So let's correct that part. What else does it say? Injectors causing issues. They can cause issues, but remember, it's only when the correct maintenance isn't done. Okay, when it's worked on people that don't understand these vehicles, much like what you're describing, you've shown that you really don't understand. We'll get into the next paragraph shortly. Injectors causing issues in cases of holes being melted through pistons. Well, that is completely incorrect. There's never a hole melted through a piston. Let's be quite clear. If you're going to write articles, you need to have the correct information, and this is completely factually incorrect. They crack pistons. Very small problem. There's always a reason, and it is a crack, clearly a crack. They don't melt holes in pistons. So now that that's corrected, not great. Well, yeah, not great, but not correct. However, a fair few years have passed and there's fixes available. Can't wait to hear this. The fixes we've made available for many years now in our videos and on our groups and pages and all over the internet for years. So there are fixes, more to the point there's prevention available. So of course our channel is where you want to be subscribed and watching the information if you want to have the real accurate information from someone that actually works on these vehicles every day. Lots of experience. I mean, what would I know? A few injector seats, a few, you know, a little bit about injectors there, just demonstrating what would I know. Okay, I'm not going to talk, you know, you look, yeah, whatever. Okay, moving on to the next paragraph, right? Here we go. Here it is. Problem, injector seats and seals. Can't wait to read this one. This is the epicenter of issues for the D4D motor. Excuse me, block your kids' ears. Shithouse injectors and seals that cause flow-on effect of issues. Sorry, there it is. I swore, but I repeated what another person bothered writing in an article. I just don't understand. Anyway, I just want to be clear about what was written. I'll say it again after that word. Injectors and seals that cause flow-on of issues, which you can read about more below. I'm sure you can. The original injector seats at the base of the injector were made from copper. Correct. Which would regularly fail. Well, that's incorrect. There was actually a recall announced for this New Zealand and Europe, but Aussies seem to miss the email chain for the recall service bulletin. When the seats go, excess blow-by gases enter the tappet cover and mixes with the engine oil, creating carbon. This blocks the oil pickup, starving the motor of oil. If you're experiencing white smoke and rattling noise when cold, this is where I'd start looking. Well, that's just awesome. See, that's why I said one paragraph at a time, and if you're getting excited, we're going to correct that paragraph right there, right? That's factually incorrect, and then we're going to have to just go to part 2 in another video, because by the time I do that, it's just going to get too long. So let's just go back through it again. It's the epicenter, is it? Okay, let's just be clear. They're not how you describe their injectors. The injectors are quite good, and the seals are good also, and they work really well when the workmanship is correct and when they're replaced at the required intervals. Okay. They were made from copper. They are made from copper. They're always made from copper. There's what you're calling were made from copper, and maybe you got your information from someone that says they're not made from copper. I don't know what they are. Tell us what they are. I can tell you there's still copper. You can see underneath where the coating's worn through, as we've demonstrated in our readily available information in many videos quite clearly what's what. It needs to be copper, okay? So it's not was copper. It's not they were copper. They are copper. As I've explained in other videos, this coating is an improvement which we believe from our experience gives approximately 20% more life, and the life of them is around about 5 times Toyota's service schedule. Yes, that's right, 5 times. Toyota's plan was to have these replaced every 40,000 Ks when you pull these injectors out to check the valve clearances, okay? The problem is that doesn't happen, and that's when they leak at 200,000 Ks, give or take, right? So they're lasting 5 times as long, and you want to call it a problem. You've just got a complete misunderstanding. Anytime you want to get yourself educated, if this is you, Glenn, please confirm yes or no. You can comment in the, you can put a comment on the video and let us know yes or yeah, that was me, or no, it wasn't. You can come down and see me. You're not that far away. It's about a 10-minute drive, and I can spend the time for you, no charge, and educate you about this problem, and you can write about it to people, please, or you can just watch the videos. It's all in the videos. Anyway, which would regularly fail. They didn't fail regularly, as I've explained already. They're only going to fail when A, these have not been changed. They've been left there for 200,000 or 300,000 Ks. When people have taken them out and put them back in without cleaning the ports, see how that one's black on the bottom? That's dirty. That's not going to seal the way it's meant to. It should look more like, we'll grab another one. See how that's reasonably clean? And why is there so many? It's you know, they're all over the place. Look at it. See that? Can you see that? It's just, you know, they're everywhere. Seats that have not been put in correctly, okay? And then, of course, you've got the ones that look like copper, right? If you have a close look at that one, I'll just try and bring it into focus. See how there's that light yellow colour? That's because it's brass, and brass is hard. It's intrinsically harder than copper. You want to see that again? Yeah, it looked like copper, didn't it? Just like any other one down here. If you have a close look, there's plenty of those, right? And there's ones that have got the silver coating over them that are brass as well, right? Here's one, I see one here, right? You can see it's had massive blow-by. You can see on the seat it's silver where the silver hasn't worn off, right? But you can quite clearly see it by the erosion at the edges. It's yellow, which is brass. I'm not sure. I always get my words mixed up here with brass, copper, and whatever, but you know what I'm trying to say. Brass is this colour, copper's that yellowy colour, which I've just demonstrated. Now you can see why I'm going to have to break this up into a few different videos. So now, then you say there was a recall announced in New Zealand and Europe. Well, wait your turn. There was a recall here as well. So you got that wrong as well. The recall in Australia was in February 2015. Okay, so I don't know when this article was written, but I believe it's after then, because if I remember correctly, and I've got a fairly good memory, it was your 120 Prado that blew up at 280,000 Ks in the Northern Territory, maybe only about a year ago, so perhaps last year, that'd be 2019, which means the recall, which means this was written after the recall. The recall was 4 years, 5 years ago now, it's 2020, COVID-19 year, you'll never forget it. So the point is you didn't do very good research. You can, like I said, feel free to make a phone call. I think people have probably recommended that. I know people have spoken to you. Bada bing. Anyway, let's move on. So the Aussies didn't miss the email chain, so that's wrong. It is correct when the seats go excess by gases, you know, you're sort of on the right track, but as soon as you said enter the tappet cover and mixes with the oil, that's where you went completely wrong, okay? It's all explained really clearly in other videos, but I'm going to do it for you again right here. This is what happens. I hope everyone's watching, and I'll put the unsealed 4x4 and all this sort of thing in the description and the keywords. Hopefully people that read that, misinformation in this case at least, I don't read it. I provide information and accurate information. But luckily someone was able to share it. I hope all their other information isn't so incorrect and factually incorrect. So what happens is, yes, these injectors, they are clamped down, they go in the head, okay? That seating washer, that sits there, okay? That's where they sit like that, right? They get clamped down here. There needs to be cleanliness, quality genuine parts, clean installation, and a torque wrench to set the clamp pressure on the bolt for the pressure on this clamp for that washer to seal. When it's done, as per factory, these seats are going to last. As I said, we recommend changing them at 170,000 kilometers, give or take. You know, if you've got a job like that, if they've been redone, they're not going to last. That's caused by people, not a problem with the injectors or the seats. Okay, let's be really clear here. What happens when that seat leaks? The blow-by gases do not enter the valve cover. What did you call it? Let me go back. Blow-by gases enter the tappet cover. No, they don't. They don't enter the tappet cover. You know, no, they don't. You're just dreaming. Look, this is what happens. The blow-by gases, if you want to explain something, you've got to be really clear and demonstrate like this, right? So this is where the cylinder is, down here. This is your engine cylinder. I've got some other videos how an engine works. There's going to be more of those. Make sure you watch those. This is where the fuel's being injected. This is the sealing area. Here is clean and dry. There's no movement of any air whatsoever usually. Here is an O-ring that stops the oil coming down, because this area here is an oil gallery for cooling the injector. Oil flows around past the injector here. Helps warm and cool the injector, right? Starts warming it up when it's cold and keeping it. You know, it's about operating temperature. We aren't going to it too much. So what happens when that leaks? Those hot compression gases, a small amount only, blow up here. But what happens when that keeps happening, besides cooking your injector nozzle, which is going to damage that over time, it eventually bakes and hardens this O-ring. See, at the moment it's nice and soft, I can squeeze it and it lifts up, but it kind of like turns into plastic and it cracks. And then all those compression gases do go a little bit further into this oil here. Not up into the valve cover really, you know, just here in the oil. And what it does, it bakes the oil here into little bits of carbon, right? And that's what you've seen. If you watch our videos, watch the photos, look at the information on our Facebook groups, you'll fully understand, and a lot of people watching this video completely understand what's going on because they've seen this explained by me a number of times. It's really clear. So what happens then is you've got all these bits of carbon here, right? You got your compression blowing up here, you got your oil leaking down, actually more to the point. It's not happening up here, it's happening down here. The oil, because the O-rings failed, then the oil comes down, right? The oil comes down around here. That's the first thing that happens, right? So it wasn't clear. What happens is That doesn't come up and doesn't happen up here. The oil comes down. And then when you've got your engine switched off overnight, that hot oil, it can slowly trickle through past that seal and drip down. You might get a couple of drips on your piston overnight. You might get 5 or more, depending how big your cloud of smoke is in the morning. That could be what's happening. Okay, so that's what's happening with the smoke. Okay, but then what happens is, because of the compression, it also pushes oil and those basically from the heat, the carbonisation starts to happen right here, right? That's where the oil's sitting around this cap nut, around that head of that 14mm nut. We call this the cap nut. And then all those little bits in that space there, they get pushed up. There's fine clearances through there, but they come up past the O-ring into that oil gallery, and oil's coming. So it's kind of a bit of a flowing around situation. What happens is those bits of carbon and those particles that were created right here, nowhere near the valve cover, they flow in the oil system. Remember, this is an oil gallery, right? They flow in the oil system, and everything goes back to the sump, because that's where the oil gets picked up. And that's your oil pickup that gets blocked, right? Bada bing, right? And when your oil pickup's blocked, that's where the engine gets starved of oil. And yes, it is a contributor, not a cause. It's a contributor to cracked pistons. But the main thing that causes is a completely separate problem to cracked pistons, and that is oil starvation. And then your turbo doesn't get the lubrication, your engine doesn't get the lubrication, the bottom end of the engine, the camshafts, everything doesn't get the lubrication. All right, so that's back to correct. We've corrected that part. Let's go back to reading. Okay, what did he say? When the seats go, excess blow-by gases enter the tappet cover. So obviously you can see that's wrong. And mixes with the engine oil. No, it doesn't go in the tappet cover and mix with the engine oil. Nothing, no blow-by gases mix with engine oil. No, that doesn't happen at any stage of an engine operation whatsoever. So that's factually incorrect. Creating carbon. No. If you mix exhaust gases and engine oil, it doesn't create carbon. No. What creates carbon is what I've described right here. Geez, Pat, I'm going to have a talk to you about this, I'll tell you. You know, people need to really get their facts straight before they do this. This is so misleading. Okay. Right, you can see it here where we're up to. This blocks oil pickups, starving the motor of oil. So that doesn't. This does, what we've just explained here. So you've got half the facts mixed with completely factually incorrect information mixed together. It's just an absolute mess, really. Blocks the oil pickup, starving motor of oil. If you are experiencing white smoke and rattling, noise and cold, this is where I'd start looking. Well, if you are experiencing white smoke on startup, the place you start looking is at the oil pickup, which we're not going to bother showing you photos of in this video because we've showed it before. That's in the sump hole after you drain the oil. Keep searching our channel for further information. Search things like checking the oil pickup. Okay. And then it says, it doesn't end there. The injectors themselves, are they under enormous pressure from the common rail injection system, are prone to failure? No, that's incorrect. The injectors are awesome. They do run at very high pressure. They're not under any enormous pressure or whatever. They do what they're designed to do, and they don't fail prematurely unless contamination is introduced to the system. There is wear and tear, as you can see on all these components. We've explained in other videos, there's normal wear and tear. Things don't last forever, like your brakes, like your tyres, like your engine, like your gearbox, and like your clutch and everything else. They are wear and tear items. It's metal working parts. You can see it here. You can't expect a seat either to last forever. We've got alloy, we've got steel, we've got different components, we've got copper. Needs to be copper to squash and seal, but they all heat and cool at different rates, therefore creating a lot of movement, which is what creates a lot of the erosion here, which leads to these don't last forever. They last a bloody damn long time, considering the work they're doing and the heat they're placed directly above, right in the middle of that combustion for many years, and heating and cooling. It's amazing they last that long, and I can understand why Toyota wanted to change these every 40,000 Ks, but I'm quite confident telling you that when we change these, we guarantee them for 120,000 kilometres, okay? 120,000 Ks. In our own vehicle, I'm happy to leave it there from 120, you're definitely going to want to be checking the oil pickup. You may as well check it anyway. It's a free check, but I'm happy to change mine at about the 150 to 200 mark, right? Better keep reading. It doesn't end there. The injectors themselves are under enormous pressure from the common rail injection system and prone to failure. Incorrect. They will need to be checked every service to see if they are in operating spec. Now, that's a good idea, but it's only good information, as I've explained for the older ones, 05, 6, 7, 8, 9. Then when they changed, look, it's worth checking, but you can't rely on it like you could the older ones. I'm going to keep that part of it short, trying to keep this video short. So he says they will need to be checked every service to see if they are in operating spec. They don't need to be, but it's a good idea. It's recommended to replace them at 100,000. Well, I don't know who by. Some people might say that, but I didn't say that. So you don't do it, do you? Some people are saying, oh, you know, he wants a replacement at 150, 200, 170 is my recommendation. You know, and some people want to complain, oh, but mine's going fine at 300,000, 400,000 Ks, whatever. It's not going fine, it's just going. You're just lucky. Anyway, let's not argue about it, right? They certainly generally last a lot longer than 100,000 kilometres. You're not going to need to replace them every 100,000. Okay, he goes on to say, poorly performing injectors have been known to knock loudly. That is correct. Once you've got your contamination or extreme wear, you will sometimes get a loud knock. Not always. Quite often they'll run well till the end, so beware of that. Don't expect to wait for the knock. So I'll read on. Poorly performing injectors have been known to knock loudly. Present a poor idle and poor fuel economy. Present, yeah, not present, present. A poor idle and poor fuel. Poor idle, not really. The poor idle, a little bit. No, it's very rare. The poor idle is going to be more from these leaking, particularly when cold, because when you've got a compression problem, especially in a high compression engine, and you haven't got the compression because these are leaking really badly because they've never been changed, yes, that's where you're going to have a rough idle. But if anyone's listening, and most people are, this is a small problem these days. This is something you could, if you wrote accurately, you could write to people about 5 or 10 years ago, but it's all done and dusted, guys. If people don't know this, you know, I don't know what they're doing. People tell me, I can't believe the people questions ask. Obviously, they're not watching. You need to do your research. People say you need to use Google. Anyway, poorly performing injectors have been known to knock loudly, present a poor idle and poor fuel economy. They are also responsible for cracking pistons, which is another major issue with this motor. It's how mine died at 270k. Okay. They're responsible sometimes, that's right, because nobody, or I should say only a few people, are telling you that these need to be replaced periodically. This is your tuning in a diesel engine. It's well documented by Toyota that injectors and wrong combustion caused by them is what causes cracked pistons. It's well documented. Why would they make that up about their own pistons? You know, they build the cars, they've got the engineers, they're a big business. If they put a technical document out there that says, hey, injectors cause wrong combustion and crack pistons, then that's what happens, okay? You don't need to argue about that. I wouldn't go as far as to say that it's another major issue. Percentage-wise, we're talking Toyotas are probably the best. It's just because there's got the most out there. When one happens, someone talks about it, and it seems to cause, it's like a lot of things, you know, pick on Toyota because they're the best. When something happens, it's always, you know, it gets so much attention, where you can have all these other brands having problems at such lower kilometers and you don't hear anything about it, you know. Anyway, here we go. Right now, this is the best part, right? We're up to the solution, right? Solution, I'll read you the solution. A quick look online shows new injectors will cost a minimum of $370 times 4, so you're up for nearly $1,500 minimum. That's right, and be careful what you see online, because it could be Chinese copies, it could be remanufactured, it could be anything. Always, as I say, be careful where you go, and we do happen to supply the injector kit, so you've got all the complete parts you need, all from one place, with backup service, the videos in the VIP group showing you how to do it right the first time, seeing as there's certainly a lot more engines out there than there are people that know how to work on them properly. Okay. A quick look online shows new injectors, 370 times 4, 1,500 minimum, just in parts to get this fixed. Well, you're going to need more than that, because you're going to need pipes and seals and gaskets. You're going to need, you haven't talked about the intake here and whatever, which isn't a problem. That is, again, emission standards that need to be met. It's a standard system on the vehicles. Okay. However, if the injectors, minimum 15, just in parts to get this. However, if the injectors are still inspected, it is advised to change the seats with new diamond-like coating seats, which were introduced from 2007. Change the seats with new. So now he's calling the seats, these seats, diamond-like coating. So you got it wrong again, mate. You know, The DLC coating is this black stuff here, right? You know, here we go. We'll do a comparison. We've done it in other videos, right? Standard on the left, the shiny one, right? DLC, black one, right? Anyway, I'll read it again just to be clear how misleading it is. It is advised to change the seats with new diamond-like coating seats, which were introduced from 2007. You've just got your information so mixed and factually incorrect, it should be illegal to write this or put it on the internet. Pat, I think we're going to need to have a little chat about this one. Glenn, was this you? Please reply. You've got my phone number anyway, I think. Give me a ring or something. You know, we need to get this crap off the internet. It's just wrong. Okay. Every 40,000 change injector, so they want to then change the diamond light coating seats every 40,000. Well, our advice is don't do that, because this is the problem you've got, guys. As much as they want to change that, it risks contamination. You've got to disconnect the fuel lines and pull them back. Well, you don't have to do that. That's what they do. They bend them away from the engine. Everything's all dirty and all the dirt gets in the injector inlets here. That's why they're capped. Not that this one matters. It's just a demonstration. You don't want rubbish going in there, and that's exactly what happens most of the time, more often than not, when you get someone checking your valve clearances every 40,000. Our advice is, because the risk of contamination is way too high, do not do that. Do not open that. I know from experience your valve clearances are going to be okay in most cases. If you want more detail, watch the other videos. Don't open the fuel system. You need to, so this is really important information. Okay, let's go back to the reading though. Change them every 40,000. That's what Toyota's recommendation is. It's not what my recommendation is, and I've backed up why. It's in other videos. He's saying change the seats every 40,000. Change the injectors every 100,000. That's overdoing it, guys. It's going to cost you money. You don't need to do this. The other reason why we don't check the valve clearances and change these seats every 40, it's a massive labor-intensive job. It's going to cost you money. It's just ridiculous, mate. You know, you need to do it efficiently. You need to do things when they need doing, not before they do, and not after they do. It's like a balance. You got to get the balance right. You know, the balance of things. You know, you don't want to do it too soon. It's like changing oil. You know, you got to do it. You don't do your oil every 1,000 k's. You don't leave it there for 40,000 k's. Well, some people do. And then he says, this will prevent cracked pistons, clogged oil pickups, and associated issues mentioned previously, which I'll agree with. That last sentence, this will prevent cracked pistons, clogged oil pickups, and all associated issues mentioned previously. So even though the information is all wrong and just mixed up, if you were to do a really clean, not use your car off-road, not get any sand, dirt, or dust in those nozzle seals and around the pipes, and you were to change these seats every 40,000, they're not going to leak, and then change your injectors every 100,000, yes, it's most likely going to prevent cracked pistons, as long as you don't have chips and tunes and all the other associated problems as well. Okay, so understand this is not the only cause. There's other contributing factors. Okay, anyway, guys, that's long enough. We spent 27 minutes explaining the first problem, right, and the solution, and it goes on. So this is part one. The next problem, engine rattle. Here we go. So look, guys, if you got something like that, please remember, give us a thumbs up for that information. Watch the other videos. Search injector replacement, injector seats, checking oil pickups, all this sort of stuff on our channel, so you get the right, accurate information. Bada bing. If you haven't already, hey, subscribe, turn that bell on. Do yourself a favor so you don't miss out on that next important message, and share the information to at least one group or one friend or someone that you care about, and let them know. Careful what you're reading and listening to online, because there's a lot of misinformation out there. Once again, guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for your support. This is part one. Part two will be coming. Problem engine rattle. All right, guys, I'm out of here. Thanks for watching. See ya.